When Vladimir Putin launched the invasion of Ukraine, he believed it would be an easy conquest. Tanks and tens of thousands of soldiers would overwhelm Ukraine, forcing a swift surrender. Even when that failed, he assumed the full support of his people would allow him to grind Ukraine down over time. What Putin didn't anticipate was that resistance would arise not just in Ukraine, but within his own borders. In occupied Ukraine and across Russia, underground forces are proving him wrong. Strikes come from unexpected places, showing Putin he can never predict the next move. A secret war is unfolding within Russia itself. According to Euromaidan Press on December 2, resistance movements are becoming a major problem for Moscow. Hiding in the shadows, they strike with precision, comprising both Ukrainians in occupied regions and Russians willing to fight back against Putin from inside his own country. These movements are dangerous, effective, and have carried out attacks that the Russian army and intelligence services have struggled to stop. From Melitopol to Moscow, attacks spread, showing coordination and growing capabilities of underground fighters. November alone revealed just how extensive these networks have become. In Melitopol, a group of partisans attempted to detonate a vehicle carrying a Russian drone crew. Though the attempt failed, the operation highlights the region's role as a hotbed of resistance. Back in October 2023, similar attacks succeeded, killing several Russian occupiers. Russia's authorities tried to downplay it as a technical failure, but partisans had been active there for years, demonstrating persistent resistance. In June, Pravda reported a family sentenced for collaborating with Ukraine, showing one of Russia's few successful efforts against Melitopol partisans. Sentences ranged from 20 years to life, yet operations continued unabated. In November, partisans struck in Luhansk with greater success, detonating explosives under Russian vehicles and killing 4 soldiers. Earlier in May, similar attacks in Kherson targeted pro-Russian troops, showing a growing expertise in identifying and hitting key Russian assets. In Crimea, infiltrators filmed Russian fighter jets at Saki Air Base, providing crucial intelligence for potential Ukrainian drone and missile strikes. These operations, coordinated with Ukrainian intelligence, weaken Russian strategy and force troop redeployments, delaying assaults and causing operational disruption. Within Russia itself, resistance is growing. Black Spark, a Russian group, destroyed a transport vehicle carrying Iskander missiles and a radar in Kursk, hindering Russia's ability to strike Ukraine from border regions. Other sabotage attacks targeted logistics, communications, and energy infrastructure from Moscow to Irkutsk, often dismissed as technical failures. Russia denies the existence of resistance, but it is becoming increasingly obvious. Even the capital is not immune. Drone strikes on pipelines in Moscow show partisans' reach and the growing sophistication of underground operations. Putin is confronting a dual threat: partisans in occupied Ukraine and within Russia itself. These attacks are not random. They are carefully planned, executed by people who know the terrain and the enemy. Many are ordinary citizens, engineers, drivers, even shopkeepers, turned into partisans overnight. They exploit weaknesses in Russian patrols, checkpoints, and logistics lines. Every successful strike spreads fear, forcing Russian commanders to divert resources to security, slowing down the front and weakening their overall strategy. In occupied territories, sabotage includes burning vehicles, destroying ammunition, and disrupting communications. Even minor acts have a cascading effect on Russian supply chains, causing delays, mistrust, and internal chaos. Partisans also spread propaganda to encourage defections among Russian troops. Leaflets, secret messages, and intercepted radio communications demonstrate the growing unrest inside Russian ranks. Not every soldier is loyal to the Kremlin. Some see their families suffering under sanctions, their cities destroyed, and begin to question the war. Partisans provide them an alternative path. Intelligence reports indicate that inside Russia, attacks have increased tenfold over the past 6 months. Power grids, railways, military depots, all vulnerable. In Smolensk and Bryansk, sabotage has destroyed several Russian supply trucks carrying weapons and equipment for the front. These small victories are strategic. In addition, partisans are increasingly targeting high-ranking officials through intelligence leaks, exposing vulnerabilities in Kremlin's hierarchy. Moscow's propaganda claims the war is progressing, yet partisans are eroding control from within, making each success at the front harder to achieve. By December 2023, Russian officials admitted internal sabotage is a serious threat, though the public is never told the truth. Partisans operate in shadows, and the risk of exposure is always high, yet they persist. Ukraine benefits from these movements indirectly, as each act of resistance reduces the combat effectiveness of Russian forces and creates uncertainty. The psychological impact is enormous. Russian soldiers never know when or where the next strike will hit. This fear slows operations, forces overcaution, and in some cases, troops abandon missions altogether. Partisan warfare, often underestimated, has now become a key element in Ukraine's strategy to fight back against a much larger force. Even Russian generals admit these strikes are unpredictable and damaging, forcing Moscow to rethink security measures, troop movements, and logistics. In essence, a small number of determined fighters inside Russia and occupied Ukraine are causing strategic headaches for the Kremlin. Putin's assumption that control over territory equals total power is being proven wrong by ordinary people who refuse to submit. Partisans' actions may seem small individually, but together they disrupt the enemy's plans, forcing Russian forces to allocate troops and resources just to protect supply lines. In cities, sabotage includes derailing trains, cutting communications, and destroying warehouses, which creates chaos far from the battlefield. The Kremlin attempts to cover up these failures with propaganda, claiming everything is under control, but insiders know the truth. In occupied areas, resistance fighters are also gathering intelligence for Ukrainian forces, providing coordinates for artillery and airstrikes. Every act of defiance weakens Russian morale and strengthens Ukrainian resolve. The combination of frontline defense and internal resistance creates a dual pressure that Russia has difficulty countering. Even minor victories become significant when multiplied across regions. Russian convoys that would normally deliver supplies safely are now vulnerable to ambushes and improvised explosives, delaying critical reinforcements. Commanders are forced to slow advances, waiting for secure routes, allowing Ukraine time to regroup and counterattack. Partisan efforts also serve a psychological purpose. They make Russian troops question loyalty, fear betrayal, and lose confidence. Internal threats are always more destabilizing than external attacks, because the enemy can never fully trust its own ranks or secure its supply lines. For Ukraine, leveraging these actions multiplies the effectiveness of frontline units without needing additional manpower. Experts now acknowledge that partisan networks within Russian-held territory are becoming essential to Ukraine's asymmetric warfare strategy. By disrupting supply chains, communications, and morale, these networks create pressure points that the Russian military cannot easily ignore. Ultimately, ordinary citizens, driven by courage and patriotism, have become a decisive factor in resisting an overwhelmingly powerful enemy. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces adapt quickly to battlefield conditions, using drones, mobile artillery, and ambush tactics to counter Russian advances. The integration of local intelligence with advanced technology allows for precise strikes that conserve resources and maximize impact. Soldiers on both sides face harsh winter conditions, but Ukrainian troops exploit their knowledge of the terrain to maintain mobility. Russian forces, heavily reliant on supply convoys, find themselves slowed by sabotage, logistical errors, and terrain challenges. Even with superior numbers, their operational flexibility is limited. Ukrainian units practice decentralized command, allowing small teams to act autonomously when communication is cut. This approach creates confusion among Russian commanders, who cannot predict where the next counterattack will occur. Civilian volunteers also play a key role, providing supplies, shelter, and intelligence. Without local support, occupying forces struggle to maintain control. Ukraine's strategy combines conventional defense with unconventional tactics, creating a complex battlefield where Russia cannot rely solely on brute force. Russian losses in personnel and equipment continue to mount, while morale erodes under constant pressure and unpredictability. Ukraine's adaptability has also drawn international attention, leading to increased foreign aid and sophisticated weaponry to sustain the defense. This combination of external support and internal resistance strengthens Ukraine's position far beyond its numerical size. In many cases, a small, well-positioned unit can delay or halt a larger enemy force. Psychological operations are also critical, with leaflets, broadcasts, and social media undermining Russian propaganda. Fear, uncertainty, and misinformation create additional stress for occupying forces. Meanwhile, Ukrainian civilians continue to document atrocities, ensuring that war crimes are recorded and broadcast globally. This documentation not only informs the world but also bolsters domestic morale. Russian commanders are increasingly isolated, unable to rely on accurate reports from the front lines. Communication breakdowns and partisan attacks slow reinforcements and resupply. Ukraine's forces have learned to exploit every weakness, turning disadvantageous situations into opportunities for tactical gain. As a result, Russian units often face unexpected ambushes or find themselves cut off from support in hostile territory. Even elite units are not immune, suffering losses that degrade operational capacity. The combination of military skill, local knowledge, and resilience ensures that Ukraine can sustain prolonged resistance against a larger force. As winter ends and spring approaches, conditions may favor mobility, allowing Ukrainian forces to exploit gaps in Russian defenses. The ongoing war demonstrates that asymmetric tactics can offset numerical inferiority, and that morale, intelligence, and adaptability are decisive factors. In the coming months, these elements will continue to define the conflict, shaping outcomes far beyond the immediate battlefield. The resilience of ordinary citizens, combined with military innovation, proves that determination and strategy can overcome overwhelming force. Every successful ambush, every piece of intelligence gathered, and every act of courage contributes to a larger strategic advantage. As the world watches, Ukraine demonstrates that resilience is not just about survival, but about actively shaping the battlefield and the enemy's perception. The war remains dynamic, with both sides adapting daily, but Ukraine's integration of civilian resistance and military strategy provides a model for asymmetric defense in modern warfare. Every supply line disrupted, every communication cut, and every ambush executed sends a clear message: Ukrainian territory is defended not only by soldiers but by the people themselves. The combined efforts of military and civilians turn each engagement into a complex test of strategy, will, and endurance. In conclusion, the war illustrates the importance of multi-layered defense, where conventional forces are supported by local knowledge, intelligence, and a resilient population that refuses to yield. This approach not only delays the enemy but transforms ordinary citizens into pivotal players in the defense of their homeland. As the conflict continues, these lessons in asymmetric warfare will likely influence military strategy around the world for years to come.